The fall of Constantinople. A UFO almost saved the city from destruction. Constantinople, the short name for it is Istanbul in Turkey today. According to historical evidence, from what people claim, a UFO almost saved Istanbul from destruction. George Francis, in his chronicle, where he chronicles the siege and fall of Constantinople, describes the appearance of a strange light above the besieged city, which behaved in a way that today we would call a UFO, an unidentified flying object, and had caused great commotion among the besieged Ottomans. A brilliant light descended from heaven, stood above the city, and covered it from above all night. And as soon as the Turks saw the light, at first they said that God was angry with the Christians and wants to burn them and hand them over to them as slaves, to the Muslims, to the Ottomans. But then when they saw, this was in 1454, by the way, but then when they saw that they always fell from the walls and ladders in shame, and that although they used so many tricks of war, they accomplished nothing, and also when they heard the false report about the fleet from Italy and about Lago, and then began to say for that the light of God fights on the side of the Christians, protecting them and is their ally. Therefore, they said, we can do nothing without God's will. For these reasons, the poor man, as we have said, and the whole army were sad and sullen. He therefore thought of rising the next day and lifting the siege. But that same night, the day after which they were planning to leave, they again see, as usual, the light coming down from the sky. But it did not spread itself as it usually used to do before, so that it stood above the city all night. It was only seen from afar and immediately broke up and became invisible. As soon as the poor man and all his people saw this, they were very happy and said, now the God has forsaken them. The wise and literate people of the single and unbelieving and misguided religion decided the same, that the light showed how they would win the city. George Francis, or Francis, Constantinople, 1401, Corfu 1480, was a Byzantine Roman official and historical writer who wrote the chronicle of the fall of Constantinople. When Constantine became emperor in 1448, Francis served the court as a diplomat. When he fell, Constantinople lost his family and was taken prisoner. When Constantinople fell, he lost his family, was taken prisoner, but he bought his freedom and fled first to Mistras of the Peloponnese and then to Corfu. The siege of Constantinople lasted from April 6 to Tuesday, May 29, 1453. I said 1454, sorry, it's 1453. Now, I want to tell you, though, what I read, that basically this light that was above the city was the veil of our Holy Mother. And when the veil was lifted, the light was lifted, one of the Turkish soldiers, a simple soldier it was an 18-year-old commander of the Turkish army, Muhammad was his name, Mehmet, and his mother was Christian. Okay, he had a Christian mother, but Muhammad was about to leave because he couldn't take the city. But one of the soldiers saw this light lifting from above the city and disappearing, and he went to give a message to Muhammad, saying, "I think that the Mother of God, or God, has lifted his protection from the city. So why don't we try tomorrow morning and take the city?" And they did, and they took the city the next morning. Now, when Muhammad took the city, he asked the religious leaders, he went to one of the main gates, and he saw on the left-hand side of the gate a palm melted on an open palm, 5 fingers melted onto the rock, okay? And he asked one of the high priests there, he said, what does this handprint melted on the rock mean? He said, we don't know. That's something new. We never saw that before. He said, well, figure out what it means. Otherwise, you're gonna lose your life. I want to know what that means. And he said, okay, we will fast. The high priest told him, we will fast and we will pray and ask God what that handprint means. And they came back a week later and they told Muhammad, the 18-year-old who conquered the city, they said, we received the message from our Lord, and the message was that if there were 5 believing Christians remaining in the city would not have fallen. Okay, so I remember reading there was about 50,000 left fighting for the city to uphold the city from within the walls. So it was basically one believing Christian for protecting 10,000. So the priest told Muhammad that if there were 5 believing Christians, the city would not have fallen. Now, Muhammad's mother, as we said, was Christian, and she asked him not to destroy the murals of the Church of the Holy Wisdom, and she asked him to cover them up with plaster instead of destroying them, and that plaster basically saved the murals of the Church of the Holy Wisdom of Constantinople, Istanbul. And now the plaster is falling off and revealing beautiful murals that were basically as the people of 1453 used to see them. So that's basically okay, others say that it looks like UFO. I don't believe that. It's probably that God's providence was lifted from the city. And as we know, the city was very sinful. People were very sinful. We have to, everything is controlled by God. He controls everything in history. But at that point in time, the Christians there were, what happens in kingdoms. They're squabbling and they're fighting as who's going to control, who's going to be the king, who's going to be the emperor and the autocrat. And you know what happens in these families, emperors' families, they do away with each other. But they were also practicing black magic and doing all these things. So obviously that was not to be done by Christians, and God left the city fall. So I believe that that's what it is. And many of us have seen the holy light, okay? We have seen that it is seen by people in Christian Orthodoxy, definitely. Now, that's what people saw at that time. This was from George Francis, who was a witness of that light lifting, and one of the soldiers from Muhammad's army saw it and reported it, and that's how they won. Please leave your comments, and thank you for your support. Kindly support my Patreon account. The daily posts are 5 videos daily, and they are totally different from what I have on my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for your support, and that you find all my content so interesting. You'll find the Patreon account details in the description box below.